The two-universe theory. There cannot be less than one universe. This is not disputed, but there cannot be more than two universes, this is less understood. But we can eliminate the theory that there is only one universe, conclusively. This leaves us with no other option than to accept the theory that two universes exist. In this essay we shall look at the one-reality hypothesis and its inherent flaws. Indeed, the one-reality hypothesis is not just flawed, it is flawed in such a way that it makes the two-reality hypothesis the only possible explanation for reality. However, this assertion there are two distinct universes has to be elaborated on. We are not claiming there are two universes with two totally distinct and complete autonomous universes. The two universes are two mirror image realities that are two phases of a single paradigm, but only one is real in the absolute sense. The other is at best a negative abstraction. Yet it is the reality that seems the most real to most of us, the one which is the least likely to exist in the positive sense. For every negative image, there must be a positive one. But the positive can exist on its own. This is because the positive is a coherent existence, but the negative is a denial of the positive form. There is not negative balance until a positive one exists. Not even the devil makes sense unless one has acquired a belief in God. But to go back to the contention that there is but one reality. This can only be true if this reality encompasses all conceptions of reality, as it is a contingent reality. The one reality is relativistic as it cannot be an absolute. The absolute reality is God, or that which is created by God. If reality is the highest and most perfect of all conceptions, it must be what we conceive of as God. But this cannot be the one reality because man is able to conceive of a great many things that are imperfect and decidedly flawed. The reality we are in is not perfect, and indeed those in it deny the existence or even the possibility of a perfect reality. Yet, were this imperfect, casualist reality the only reality, it would have to be perfect. But it is not, and what is worse, how can we improve this imperfect conception if there is no perfect form of reality? We cannot fix a broken car if there is no idea of a perfectly operating. We cannot make a cake unless there is the imagery of what the perfect cake looks like to guide us. If all games are relative and there is no perfect way to play a game, the game cannot be won. The perfect must exist, analytically and logically. The perfect is morally true. The imperfect does not have to exist, but if it exists as a negation of the positive phase. To better understand this requires we rethink our paradigm of what positive and negative means. Because when we take this and translate it into concepts such as good and evil, we create bizarre setups that make no conceptual sense. Good and evil cannot be equal but opposites, or like positive and negative energy, they would cancel each other out. Good and evil are inversely related, one cannot have the one without negating an equal and opposite of the other. Yet, evil cannot ever be total because that would make evil perfect, and evil, by its nature, can never be perfect. Good and evil are not at the ends of an infinitely long continuum. Evil can never equal good or replace good in the absolute sense. Absolutes are always morally good and logically coherent. It is difficult to say where the idea that good and evil are equal but opposites came from, other than the devil. Satan is not the equal of God nor of similar substance. God and the devil are no more infinitely separated ideals than plus and minus are. The positive balance in an account book is a hair's breadth away from a negative balance. The thickness of the line is equal to the smallest accounting unit. The division between positive and negative is always created by an invisible line. The division between the two universes is not physical. There is no wall between them. This line is substantially the same as the line between +1 and -1. The line between the two universes is substantially the same as that between East and West. But as in a profit and loss, the earnings are always 100% positive. What is variable is the percentage of this amount that is consistent. Expenses can be a portion of total earnings or even exceed the total. However, this negative bookkeeping is misleading, because the losses of one company is income for another. The economy as a whole has equal inputs and outputs. But when it comes to the two universes, what we have is a perfect, analytical conception, and the lies that have been told about it. Naturally, the lies are not the truth, and so these lies inhabit another realm from the perfect truth. These two realities give us the perfect realm and the imperfect realm. What the lies do is attempt to subvert and corrupt the truth. All they can do is destroy the truth, for the liar. So, These two realities exist in an inverse relationship. Conceiving of this scenario is difficult until one remembers what we are actually talking about. These realities are not something substantial. They might be considered ideological. The two realities exist in our understanding. The two realities reflect the truth we believe and the lies we embrace. But to understand that, we need to understand what is really on each side of the line of division. Because for some reason the negative side of the equation has sucked up the oxygen out of the debate. Despite no one being able to prove physical reality exists, and in fact having ample evidence the concept of a physical reality is irrational, the vast majority of people are focused intently on avoiding the truth that is obvious. No one can make sense of a reality that is phenomenological. If we find out about reality through our senses, where are our senses located? Are we not saying reality finds out about itself by fabricating something called sentience out of non-sentience? But what is the difference between sentient matter and non-sentient matter? How does some matter acquire sentience while the rest of reality does not? Even here we see the elements of a two-reality hypothesis, as the reality of the sentient is a far different reality than the reality of the non-sentient. The difference is so great it can be equated with the realities of the saved and unsaved, but there is a different way of thinking about this issue. Instead of these two realities being conceived of as something objective which is best viewed through the lens of empirical science, it is better to look at them as two conditions or states of being. Instead of there being a physical reality that mankind observes, think of a range of possible responses and the reality of any one person being a position on this continuum created by the choices made by that specific person. Think of the universum, the totality of the two universes, as being a reflection of the specific choices we make. We are, as individuals and as a church, akin to a business. As individuals and collectively as a church, produce and consume value. But are we consuming more than we produce? Because like a business that spends more than it earns, it means we become parasitic. If our actions do not produce enough income to pay our costs, we take on the nature of a parasite. The reality of the parasite is far different from that of the ascetic. The parasite does not live according to the absolutes of accounting. He or she is free to consume whatever he or she can acquire. This right to take what one wants or needs, is grounded in the law of the jungle or natural law. Might makes right, in the end justifies the means, is the founding law of all law. It is the rule that manifests as the law of the jungle. All law and all states are derived from the original law, the law of the jungle. But the law of the jungle presupposes a different law, the law of ownership, which states we own what we create, and no one has a right to claim anything created by another. If someone has the right to take what they want, because they have the power to take it, there are others who have no right to own what they produced, because they lack the power to protect it. Thus, once again we see there are two realities and two perspectives, neither compatible with the other. If the power of the jungle predominates, then the rights of ownership must give way. If we respect ownership, then the law of the jungle must be shelved and set aside. There are two choices or options available to us, and they generate two distinct realities, or outcomes. There is then, the logical necessity of two incompatible realities, inversely related one to the other. They are in a struggle to see which one will predominate and indeed, which will overcome the other. We can extrapolate from this general situation to our own individual experiences, and from this to the church. Here we find more evidence of a two-phase universe. As individuals, we live as parasites under the law, taking resources from those who create the wealth. The law justifies our expropriations. But this individual option can become a community identity and even a national one. Alternatively, we can choose to live as ascetics. People who take this option strive to do what is best for the world and ultimately the church. There is a line between what we give and what we take, and this economic line becomes a personal line that tells us if we are parasites, or ascetics. But as we join together with those who share our views, this personal data is amalgamated with the data of other Christians, and this tells us if the church adds value or not. And that is all this comes down to: we are either helping God or fighting Him. Which we do, tells us which universe and reality we are in. If we deny God, we deny His right of ownership. If we deny God's right of ownership, we deny all rights other than those rights given by the ability to wield power. But if your rights to resources is predicated on your natural rights, then there is no other standard by which you are guided. But the key difference is this: if your reality is grounded in your martial rights, you are not productive in the creative sense. Your power is destructive, not constructive, you are a taker not a giver. Your reality is incompatible with those who believe in God. Of course, those who are naturalists will think those who are creative and productive are in the same world they are in. But they will still see those who are being exploited as victims. They will not actually see them as being the same as they are. But that is the opinion and perspective of the predator. The child, raped and murdered, will reject the claim that the victim is in the same world as the criminal and predator. Those who build and create are not part of the reality of those who take and destroy. If they were in the same reality, their realities would be compatible, but the two peoples and the two realities are not compatible. That is why we are at war with one another. But the war begins inside. It begins with those who give in to their bloodlust, and those who fight against the dark. The two universes are two sides of human nature. We are at war with ourselves, and this war manifests as two different realities. Those who overcome their sin nature and learn what it means to live perfect as our Father in heaven is perfect, are no longer part of the reality that they left.